Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you and Senator Daines. We're both Westerners, so we know how Westerners love their treasures. I also want to express my appreciation for allowing Andrea Malberg, a rancher from Union County, Oregon, to testify on our River Democracy Act. And, Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record my remarks. I'm going to keep it brief this morning. Is that acceptable to the Chair?
Without objection.
Great. I'm going to start by entering into the record an October 2020 Grant County economic study co-authored by the City of John Day, which found that outdoor recreation in and around the John Day Wild and Scenic River generates over $11 million per year, and that's in a county with just over 7,000 people. I also want to submit for the record letters from 3 watershed councils, the Rogue, the Molalla, and the Upper Deschutes, that support the River Democracy Act and the restoration tools it provides. Mr. Chairman and my colleague, my home state is 3,000 miles from Washington, D.C. And I think, as Senator Daines knows, for Westerners, it often seems like we're even further away. So I have, in my time in public service, always tried to shorten that distance by throwing open the doors of government. I've done that by holding almost 1,000 in-person town meetings, scores more discussion sessions on Zoom and in schools and other community centers, and I call it the Oregon Way. The River Democracy Act is another such effort to listen to the people of my home state in every nook and cranny of Oregon. Oregonians love to discuss our rivers for their beauty, for their cool, clear drinking water, for fishing and rafting, for unmasked salmon and steelhead, unmatched salmon and steelhead, and also because of the huge boost to our recreation economy. So what I have done with this legislation is I've asked Oregonians to give me their ideas and their best suggestions for additional conservation efforts and additional opportunities to protect our rivers. Mr. Chairman and Senator Daines, I don't know of another such effort in the country to go to the people in every part of my state and say, I'm not going to write this bill in Washington, D.C. I'm going to take your ideas and suggestions when you give them to me. And I can tell you they sure did that. The response was overwhelming. In a few months, my office received over 15,000 nominations for rivers and streams that Oregonians felt are worthy of wild and scenic river designations, which produce a bill that would protect nearly 4,700 miles of rivers and streams. So I say to my colleagues, both of whom I work with constantly, talked to Senator King last night about health care. Senator Daines and I put in a big privacy bill this week, so we work together often. I consider this a fresh approach to legislating because it's not me writing a bill in Washington, D.C. and handing it over to my colleagues and then we talk about it. This bill comes from the people of Oregon, the Oregon Way. And the bill represents, for example, nominations from school kids for Tumalo Creek for their science class at the Pacific Crest Middle School in Bend, for Rough and Ready Creek from River Guides in Southern Oregon, and for the Umatilla River and Middle Fork of the John Day by the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation. So this is what I thought the future of natural resources policy ought to be about. Empowering people, particularly Westerners, who, as Senator Daines knows, treasure our natural resources and want to use them for multiple purposes, to have a new opportunity to share their views. Now, in addition to protecting rivers and streams, I also felt it was important to take unique steps to protect my communities from the ravages of catastrophic wildfires. And I think my colleagues from the West know how strongly I feel about it, but I know all Westerners do. And you heard me ask Vicki Christensen about the prospect of something unprecedented. I say to my friends from Montana and Utah, we might have multiple fires this fire season across the West. Normally it's Oregon helping Montana and Montana helping Utah, and we all pitch in. This year, we may have, Senator King, we may have multiple big fires at the same time in the West, which is why I asked Vicki Christensen about it. So I thought that this bill, in addition to protecting rivers and streams, this legislation takes unique and extraordinary steps to protect our communities from the ravages of catastrophic wildfires. And I sure wish this bill had been in effect already because of the fire season we're looking at. Now, the way this bill does it is it requires the Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management to develop and implement a wildfire risk reduction plan for every river corridor, and the bill ensures thinning and carefully implemented prescribed fires are going to turn these river corridors into fire safety corridors. In addition, the legislation establishes new ways for the Forest Service to work with local fire response teams so that local crews can respond immediately when a fire strikes. So those are the two key provisions, colleagues, in the bill. But we Westerners know that there's some other important issues that go into writing a bill like that. And one of them is protecting private property rights. So to do that, I state on page 16, line 7 of the bill, that nothing in this act or an amendment shall affect private property rights. Right there, page 16 in the bill, private property respected. Same goes for water rights, protected on page 17, line 1 and 10. So I want my colleagues, because I think my friend from Montana said, well, you've been getting some letters. I just want him to know particularly about two of those issues, the protection for private property and water rights. The last point I want to mention is that we know that rivers are a very strong economic engine in Oregon and frankly throughout the West. Outdoor recreation supports well over 200,000 jobs statewide and generates more than $15 billion in consumer spending each year. And so as we add up all of those benefits, the beauty, the drinking water, fishing and rafting, this incredible salmon and steelhead that we're gifted with, and the bonanza of the boost for our economy when we need it, I think it really goes to the heart of what the West really ought to be all about. Now, colleagues, your states may not want to do that. And I get that, and that's what we love about the West, is we're independent. We like trying to carve our own path in policy and governance. But this is, in my view, what our late great governor of Oregon, Tom McCall, a Republican I might note, would really think about when he talks about livability and proceeding in a way where you protect 4% of those rivers. 4% of those rivers is wild and scenic, so that during our short time on the earth, we can say we did something to ensure Oregon's special places would be there for our children and our grandchildren, and we got all the benefits today that constitute sound policy. And that's why I felt it was so important to add those unprecedented protections to make sure that we had an added measure of safety against the prospect of wildfire that we know well in the West. Thank you. Thank both my colleagues.
Mr. Chairman.